when I witnessed my first death of a patient, they were palliative. It was going to happen in hospital, but it was still an emotional toll knowing that that was my patient, that happened on my shift. And now I've got to call the family.
This is the 20-Minute Career with me, Jane Butler. Today's guest is Cristiana Russell, a registered nurse who started her training in the middle of COVID and has been in the role for almost 3 years. Her career has taken her from one end of life to the other. She's held newborn babies on their first day in the world, and she's supported families through the hardest news of their lives. Somewhere along the way, she also became something nobody trains for, a voice for patients when they need one most. Let's go. Cristiana, welcome to the 20-Minute Career.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Nursing is in the top 10 in-demand roles, as stated by the World Economic Forum report in 2025. And it's only going to grow in demand between now and 2030. And obviously, it'll probably continue to grow because nursing's always been an in-demand skill. You are a registered nurse. Was it something that you had always thought that you would do when you were leaving school?
When I was in school, I always, in the back of my mind, just thought I would want to be a midwife, but I didn't really want to commit to going to uni straight out of school. I wanted to get some life skills and figure things out. And then COVID hit, where the world was in need of more nurses, and uni opportunities were easier to get into for registered nurses. And I thought, you know what? I should get out of this comfortable life that I've built and get back into uni and, become a registered nurse. I've just started working in a maternity ward and eventually want to be a midwife, but I'm honestly so happy that I took the registered nurse route. I've just built so many skills in that field.
Now, nursing's changed a little bit over the last few years, right? Because from what I understand, you can go straight into midwifery or you can get your registration as a registered nurse. What are the pros and cons between the two, do you think?
I remember looking at it while I was in year 11 and 12. For some reason, the ATAR was so high in order to get into midwifery. I did well at school, but not well enough to get that sort of ATAR, whereas nursing's a bit lower. I feel as though if you go the nursing route, you've built so many skills that are going to help you in the maternity route of, you know, when it's not just a simple like mother-daughter breastfeeding sort of thing, but it's more complex. You have those skills to go back to. Whereas in midwifery, I think it's a bit more focused on that sort of journey. I guess the pro of just going maternity route is like a quicker way to get into that.
If that's something that you like.
Yeah.
I guess the downside of that is if you go straight into it and you don't like it, you've done a number of years of study and you can't go back into a normal nursing role, can you?
Exactly. I'm so glad that I've got this nursing background and found other things that I love to do that aren't just maternity driven.
So, what kind of things do you do during a shift?
I work on a postnatal ward. So it's a lot of patient education. I just love talking to people who actually want to listen and really learn from these conversations. You help with breastfeeding, you help with settling techniques, just simple things to get the parents confident to get back home and start this new life.
So, it's everything after a baby is born at this stage. Are you doing anything in sort of the labour ward, or is that something that you'll learn?
That's something I'll learn later when I start doing midwifery. But it's all postnatal, but it's honestly, it's so cute just seeing babies every day. It's just crazy that that's my life.
You'd have to enjoy babies to be working
Yes.
in that kind of environment. Nursing, it can be quite a critical role.
Mm.
What are some of the pressures that exist in the role that you undertake today?
The fact that someone's life is in your hands. Back when I was just in a normal surgical ward, it was, really challenging in the sense that, like, if something goes wrong, it can happen so quickly. So it's important to have the support around you, which luckily I've always been working with really supportive teams. But it's just that life in your hands and picking up on some key things that aren't exactly right in order to get into the case of things early instead of it being too late and too dire.
Post having a baby, there's a lot of complications that can go wrong, and the
Mm.
need to be able to understand the signs and symptoms through observing, you need to actually act quite fast, don't you?
Pretty much every shift we have to be checking blood pressure and vital signs. When I was a student, I didn't really clock it immediately, like what importance of these vital signs are. Like, obviously, it's going to tell us something, but what is it going to tell us? But actually, seeing when it's not within the normal scope of things and being able to act quickly.
One of the challenges with postnatal is not only is it checking on the mum, but it's also the baby.
Yeah, and it's hard to think. I feel like you have double the patients when you're on that ward, which is definitely challenging, but it's important you use your time management wisely and know who to focus on at the start of your day and get from there.
What is it that you really like about nursing?
Ooh, I honestly love just talking to people. I'm such a people person, but I think nursing wise, I love to just advocate for my patients. And you can really see the difference in a nurse who actually cares for what the patient wants. Sometimes you find nurses who are so stuck in their way and they go, oh, that's how the patient is, blah, blah, blah. But I love to, listen out and say, well, why is that patient saying that? What can we do to get their voice heard and really advocate in that sense? So I'm a people person in that sense. And I think you can really tell when I leave a patient's room and they feel heard and understood.
Do you think that when someone's in hospital that they don't feel empowered as much as that they would be if it were just in a normal day-to-day routine that makes people really vulnerable, that requires a nurse to be that advocate?
I think it's a very vulnerable place. You've got doctors who just kind of barge in when it's best for the doctor. It's not always best timing for the patient. They're vulnerable. They're not in their safe space. They're in a room that's not comfortable. They're in a bed that's not their own. They're not always with family or friends. They feel alone, and it's very vulnerable in that sense.
So having a nurse to really identify and pick up the cues that something isn't quite right here. What is it? And dig a little bit deeper under the cover.
Exactly. And on the postnatal ward, you see the mum for like 4 or 5 days, they stay on our ward. And it's really good when you have that same woman over a consecutive amount of days because you can tell if something's wrong and really bring that to attention to a doctor.
I guess particularly within postnatal and postnatal environment, one thing that you'd have to be quite mindful of is looking for sort of signs of postnatal depression.
Yeah, really looking at the signs. And there's so many different aspects to it. We were just recently learning about breastfeeding for breastfeeding week last week. And even then, like all the emotions that go into breastfeeding and trying to pinpoint, oh, is this just because of breastfeeding or is this postnatal depression? And yeah, there's just emotions everywhere. And it's very important to find when something's wrong.
There's not always fun things about some roles. And having a lot of friends that are nurses or have worked in nursing, it's one of those careers that people will start, then they might leave. There's very few people that stay in there long term. You've only just started your career in nursing. What are some of the challenges that exist that you may not have thought about when you first thought, yeah, nursing would be a great career?
I always looked at the shift work and being like, oh, how am I going to cope with that? And now actually doing the shift work, it is challenging on the body. I feel like a lot of the time I'm just tired on my days off. And we always have to mix it up where it's an AM, PM, or the dreaded night shifts and really trying to plan the rest of your week around work. I never want to focus on work. I want to have my downtime outside of work, but sometimes it's hard. And like a big challenge as well was when I was doing my new grad for my RN. I was 6 months on one ward. I loved working with the team, but the work itself was so heavy. The patients were very demanding, and it took a toll on my mental health and my physical health as well. So it can be challenging in that sense. But it's important to know that nursing is 24/7, that there will always be a nurse looking after a patient, and you do have the right to go home and just switch off and not think about what happened at work. And you need to know that you don't need to get everything done in your shift. There is someone that will always be there to take on the load.
So you work mornings, which are typically what kind of time would you start?
Yeah, so we've got mornings, which is 7 till 3:30, afternoons, which is 2:30 to 11 p.m., and night shifts, which is 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. Yeah.
And rosters come out how regularly? So how far in advance would you know what you're tending to work?
We see it like a month out. So our ward's pretty good where we get to request the shifts that we want a month prior, and then it gets finalized, and then you can see it, which is nice. But you also have to make sure you have all those shifts in that month. We have to do a minimum of 4 night shifts a month and different things like that, which when I first started my nursing, I was like, "I never wanna do nights. What do you mean?" But I've grown to not love them because it's hard on the body, but I've grown to just know how to get through it to prepare for a night shift and then look at the joy of it. So if I'm starting work at 10 p.m. that night, I can have a good morning of downtime, have a little nap, and then get ready for the shift.
We're starting to talk about what some of the tolls are on your body and the challenges. What else is it about working in nursing that impacts your home life?
I can really tell when it's been a massive week. I get home and I immediately just sink on the couch, and that's about it. I want to work out, I want to hang out with my partner, but I'm just so tired, which can be quite the toll. But I think with work and learning how to time manage on a shift, I try and get that back into my home life of going, all right, before I sink into the lounge, let me do a quick workout. And then I can sit down on the couch and just watch TV with my boyfriend. And we're hanging out, but we're relaxing together.
Do you miss out on events sometimes because you work on
Yeah,
weekends?
yeah, I do. I guess the good thing is being able to plan our roster a bit better now. I'll just try and like organize my nights accordingly and then try and get as much of the weekend off. A lot of people love to work weekends because the money is great on weekends, whereas I'm just like, I just want to have the weekends off with friends. So I'm happy for them to take the weekends.
What about the emotional toll? You've talked to a little bit about advocating for your patients. There must be a fairly heavy emotional toll when things may not go right.
When I was doing my new grad and um, when I witnessed my first death of a patient, which was a very like it was meant to be, they were palliative, it was going to happen in hospital, but it was still an emotional toll knowing that that was my patient, that happened on my shift, and now I've got to call the family and knowing what they're going to go through of losing someone, it really hits you. But I guess the good thing about that ward in particular was it was common having a lot of palliative patients on that ward and the support that you get from the rest of your team. It's just that's the beauty of nursing. You end up being a little family and they're always going to support you and help you out through the emotional parts.
It's one of those careers that you have to have that support network around you because the work is really hard,
Yeah.
especially when you're working on a ward, because ward work is dealing day in, day out with sick people,
Hmm.
sometimes not as sick as others. So there's sort of you've got that continuum of critically ill versus, I guess, mums that have just had babies. So not quite as sick, but they still
Yeah.
need to be monitored. But that support network is essential.
I would not be where I am without my team and like educators that have helped me, facilitators, managers, like so much support. I think that's a thing about nursing. You can't do it on your own. And I always strive to never leave work before anyone else. I want to always make sure we all leave together. And if they need things done, I'll get it. I'll help them out so we can all leave together.
So we've touched on some of the good things that you really like about nursing, but what is it that's kept you coming back day to day? If you were to sort of list your top 3 things that you love about it, what would that look like?
Honestly, the team, I just love seeing my work family day in and day out. I think seeing these new parents with new babies, it's just the most beautiful thing to even describe. Seeing that first hold in particular, and like the dad especially, when he's so delicate with a newborn and he doesn't know what to do, and then you get to see the same dad like 6 weeks later when they come and do this 6-week checkup with their doctor, and they're just so comfortable, they're basically just throwing baby around at that point. It's just so cute seeing that difference. And I guess just being able to be that positive person in a patient's life, whether it's just a small interaction, even the smallest things can make someone's day.
We're going to finish off with a quick fire round. So are you ready, Christiana?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So what has your career taught you about yourself so far?
Um, I think it's taught me to be more confident with my skills and confident in myself because I do have it. Like I've studied, I've gotten the experience, I know what I'm talking about, and it's good to just be confident in yourself. And if there are parts that you don't know, it's also good to just ask.
What's a mistake that you may have made that's taught you an important lesson?
I think a mistake is not speaking out for safety. I think early on, when you get your patient load at the start of the day, one example I can think of is when I had a really heavy load and I could see how heavy it was. And instead of just speaking up and saying, look, this is too heavy for me, I'm not going to bring the best support to my patients today. Tried to get through the day and really got swamped and had to get help in the end.
It's a good point because sometimes allocation can mean
Mm,
a lot to the outcome of the care that a patient gets.
yeah, exactly.
What skills do you think are incredibly important for people that are considering moving into nursing?
Uh, I think time management's a big one. You're not going to be amazing at it when you first start, but it's good to really get on top of that early on, because that's going to make your whole day that bit better, and you will be able to leave work on time and not live at work and be able to go home.
What do you find exciting about where nursing is moving towards sort of a future state?
I think it's just exciting knowing that it's always going to be there, that I've always got a job. And I think it's exciting that we've got more technology in our operating theatres now where we can do more complex operations that can be more life saving. And it's just exciting that with all that technology we've got, we can help more and more people.
The opportunity, I guess, with AI in particular in medicine is going to be amazing, I would say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're only very early in on your career, but what advice would you have given your 20-year-old self?
Yeah. I mean, that was only 6 years ago, but 6 years ago, I wasn't studying. I was very comfortable. It was COVID time, and I was, happy living my life working as a barista. But I think I would tell myself, look, be open to having some challenging couple years. Uni's going to be hard. Lots and lots of placements going to be hard, but you can come out of it now and live and actually, work, get enough money and be home and hang out with friends and do so many different activities when you're home and not feel so pressured to get everything done.
It's been really lovely having a chat to you this morning, Christiana. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.